Chapter 1047. Shen Luo and had an ominous feeling in his heart. After putting down the food, he knocked on the door of the bathroom. He wanted to open it, but it was locked from the inside. He tried to twist it, but it wouldn't budge. Manting? Shen Luo and knocked on the door and shouted, "Are you inside? Open the door." However, it was still quiet. Suddenly, the sound of something falling to the ground came from inside. It was like a thunderclap that hit Shen Luo An's heart. Shen Luo An was shocked and knocked on the door, but there was no response. Someone outside heard the noise and quickly rushed over. But no matter how much he knocked on the door and shouted, the person inside didn't come out to open the door. Shen Luo An's face darkened. He had a bad feeling in his heart. He growled, "Get out of the way." As he spoke, he lifted the solid wood stool in the room and smashed it against the lock of the bathroom door. It didn't budge, so Shen Luo An smashed it a few more times before the lock showed signs of loosening. He slammed the door open and saw Shen Manting leaning against the glass door of the shower. There was a bottle of shower gel and shampoo in front of her, and there was foam hanging from the corner of her mouth. The liquid in the two bottles had been emptied. Seeing this scene, Shen Luo An's head suddenly shook, and a large blank suddenly attacked him, destroying all his consciousness and reason without a trace. Oh my God! There was a cry of alarm, and the people behind him suddenly ran to where Shen Manting was. When they saw her like this, they were shocked and shouted, "Oh my God, an ambulance! Call an ambulance!" For a moment, the scene was chaotic. Shen Luo An was stunned on the spot. He saw and heard people running around, but he didn't know what to do at all. In other words, Shen Luo An was already dumbfounded. She committed suicide? I just did that to her, so is she going to commit suicide? Impossible. The Shen Manting that Shen Luo An knew wasn't such a person. He was at a loss as to what to do. He took Shen Manting's body from Sister Zhang's hands and stood up with her in his arms. His heart was filled with panic and emptiness. He shouted, "Get out of my way." Paris, France. In the oversized presidential suite, a man and a woman were entangled passionately. The sound of their rapid breathing was particularly eye-catching in the quiet room. Very soon, however, his cell phone rang. In this originally spacious space, the ringtone was even more reverberating. Oh Ming raised his head and glanced at his mother in the midst of his busy schedule. Oh Ming gently released Yu Lily and said, "It's my mom. I need to take a call." Yu Lily was lying on the bed. Her clothes were messy. Her bra had been untied and hung loosely. On the other hand, Oh Ming was only left with a shirt and trousers. His thick winter clothes had been taken off. After Oh Ming calmed his breathing, he picked up the phone and said, "Mom." Xiao Ziqing sounded like she was crying as she shouted, "Lil, oh, come back quickly. It's all your fault, you little rascal." Xiao Ziqing rarely cried, and it was extremely rare to see her sobbing like she did today. Oh Ming's heart skipped a beat. He calmed down and asked, "Mom, tell me slowly. What happened?" Chapter 1048. Hearing his mother's words, Oh Ming retorted, "How is that possible?" He subconsciously thought of Shen Manting's arrogant, beautiful, and insufferably arrogant face. Shen Manting committed suicide? How is that possible? Oh Ming would never believe that Shen Manting committed suicide because Oh Ming ran away from the wedding. However, at this critical juncture, everyone would naturally attribute Shen Manting's suicide to Oh Ming. Even Oh Ming's parents and the Shen family would be no exception. However, Oh Ming didn't think it was that simple. Shen Manting didn't really like him. How could she have committed suicide because of his rejection? That's impossible. Something's wrong. Hearing Oh Ming's words, Xiao Ziqing was even angrier. She scolded, "What's wrong with Manting?" She was well-behaved and sensible. She was beautiful and had a good family background. More importantly, she loved you wholeheartedly. Why did you have to be entangled with that mistress? Now, everyone is saying that you abandoned Manting for your mistress, which led to her suicide. Xiao O, I thought you were no longer a child and had your own ideas about everything you did. But how could you be so wrong this time? Gu Nianshan thought. How do you expect us to face them in the future? Huh? O Ming pursed his lips when he heard Xiao Ziqing's words. When he was about to speak, his mother interrupted him. Xiao Ziqing went on and on. Towards the end, she burst into tears and shouted, Manting is such a good girl. It's hard to come by someone like her. If anything happens to Manting, will you be able to live with your conscience? Shen Luo asked. Mom, calm down. I don't think it's that simple. Regardless of whether it's that simple or not, the O family has become the target of everyone's disdain. Where are you now? Paris, you went to find that girl, didn't you? Xiao Ziqing's words were harsh and angry. O Ming didn't speak, but his attitude was tantamount to acquiescence. Good, good, good. Xiao Ziqing said 3 times in a row, each louder than the last. Finally, she shouted, come back here right now. Xiao Ziqing's angry voice came from the phone. When O Ming was about to speak, Xiao Ziqing had already hung up. His voice was so loud that even Yu Lily could hear him clearly. O Ming helplessly put his hands down and looked at Yu Lily in front of him. His original interest in her was gone. Yu Lily frowned and asked, what's going on? Shen Manting committed suicide. We don't know if she's dead or alive. Our family has probably been bombarded by the media. It was not hard to imagine the complexity and danger involved. He got up and said, I have to go back first. As he spoke, he put on his clothes, tidied up his shirt, and buttoned up the buttons one by one. However, looking at O Ming, it seemed that he had no intention of bringing her along. Yu Lily felt a lump in her throat and asked, aren't you going to bring me along? Chapter 1049. When Yu Lily heard that, she felt a little lost. O Ming fastened his cufflinks and looked at her with a pair of peach blossom eyes. He held her face in his hands and continued, Yu Lily, now I am not sure that I can protect you. When I go back, I will be criticized and my reputation will be ruined. If Shen Manting is rescued, I will tell her clearly. But if Shen Manting dies, I will be the biggest sinner in everyone's eyes. Moreover, behind this big sinner, Yu Lily's existence was probably more important than Shen Manting's life and death. Although O Ming felt that the reason behind Shen Manting's suicide was certainly not simple, many Chinese netizens did not pay much attention to whether it was caused by O Ming's escape from the marriage. For Chinese netizens, joining in the fun was more important than any justice. The result that everyone had determined at the beginning was what everyone hoped for. O Ming was very clear about the possible results. At this moment, O Ming had already prepared for the worst. He absolutely could not let Yu Lily return to China. Looking at Yu Lily, O Ming said word by word, I will solve everything and then come to Paris to pick you up. During this time, you will live here and don't go back. Remember. Yu Lily pursed her lips and nodded. O Ming gently kissed her on the forehead. Then, he put on his clothes and walked out. In China, Shen Manting's suicide caused a stir. Because it was discovered quickly, after some rescue and gastric lavage, Shen Manting's condition was not serious. Shen Luo's mood was originally panicked and helpless. When Shen Manting woke up, his mind gradually became clear. Looking at Shen Manting lying on the bed with her eyes closed and face pale, Shen Luo's anger was even more uncontrollable. Shen Manting had clearly calculated the time her family would deliver the food and deliberately locked the door from the inside. After that, she put on such a show. Her goal was to expose her actions and stop her. In this way, her suicide would not be successful, but at the same time, it could ignite the public opinion on the internet and push O Ming to the forefront. Retreating in order to advance, O Ming fell into the land of injustice. Shen Manting's suicide had already been the subject of much discussion, and the attention on the matter skyrocketed in an instant. In this way, Shen Manting would naturally be labeled as a victim. At the same time, she would be in a vulnerable position. If Shen Luo leaked anything at this time, it wouldn't just be about Shen Manting and O Ming. Enchantting's move killed 3 birds with 1 stone. She pushed herself to the surface, warned Shen Luo and took revenge on Ming. No one would dare to touch her easily. So, Enchanting is so smart? Shen Luo looked at Enchanting and sneered. After staring at her for a long time, he finally turned around and walked out. Yi Yu arrived at that moment. She saw Shen Luo and asked, "How is Auntie?" However, Shen Luo didn't spare her a glance and quickly walked away. When Ming returned to Kingstown, he was surrounded by a large group of media. "Mr. O, you came back from Miss Yu's place, right? What do you think of Miss Shen's suicide? I heard that you've been with Miss Yu for many years. You've been two-timing all along. Is that true?" All kinds of media platforms were talking at the same time, but Ming never said a word. Chapter 1050. Under the protection of the bodyguards, Ming quickly left the airport. From beginning to end, he didn't say a word. After getting in the car, Ming left. The news of Ming's return to China exploded on the internet again. Netizens immediately flooded Weibo, and all kinds of news were on the hot search list. The title of the first hot topic on Weibo was impressively eye-catching. The young master of the O group returns before the new year and is suspected to visit his ex-fiancée. Below, a large number of keyboard warriors flooded the screen, but all of them were cursing. What were you doing earlier? Running away from marriage for a mistress. Now that you have committed suicide, you come back to pretend? Bah! A bitch and a dog will last forever. Enchanting has waited for you for 4 years. Where can you find such a woman? You are blind. From today on, boycott all the products under the O group, including TT. Not only on the internet, but even around the O family, Xiao Ziqing's friends and neighbors gave the O family a strange look. On the way back, Ming saw a lot of news. His heart sank, but he also felt a little lucky. Fortunately, he didn't let Enchanting come back to China, otherwise things would definitely become more complicated. Ming went to the hospital to see Enchanting immediately. Outside the hospital, there were reporters squatting at the door of the hospital, waiting for Ming to appear. As soon as they saw his car arrive, the group of reporters rushed forward, scrambling to stretch out their microphones, and asked sharp and sensitive questions. "Mr. Ming, are you here to repent? Mr. Ming, why did you run away from marriage? I heard that you did this because of a mistress you have kept for many years. Mr. Ming, I heard that Miss Shen is still in a coma in the hospital, and her life is uncertain. Do you feel guilty in your heart? Mr. Ming, what are you going to do next? Do you want to break off the engagement with Miss Shen this time?" The bodyguards cleared the way. Ming, wearing black sunglasses, was expressionless and silent. After entering the hospital, Ming was taken by the bodyguards to the direction of the VIP ward where Enchanting was. On the way there, he met someone who was reasonable, yet unexpected. Shen Luo was wearing a long, cream-colored windbreaker, black trousers, and a white shirt. He looked a little thin in such a cold winter. On that gentle and handsome face, there was obvious exhaustion. Green stubble had appeared. When he saw Ming, he was slightly surprised. The two men stood in the corridor. They stopped and looked at each other. Ming took off his sunglasses and looked at Shen Luo in front of him. There was a dangerous look in his eyes as he said, "Let's talk." It was not a question, but an order. How could Shen Luo not hear the displeasure in Ming's tone? He smiled and nodded. "Let's go." The two of them went up to the rooftop of the hospital. There was no wind today, and the sun was shining brightly. But the cold air was still raging. Ming looked at Shen Luo who was wearing thin clothes in front of him, and said, "Enchanting wouldn't commit suicide because I ran away from the wedding. What did you say to her?" Shen Luo smiled and raised his eyebrows. "You're wrong. She committed suicide because she couldn't withstand the public opinion and psychological pressure. Do you think you know her so well?" Chapter 1051. In order to escape from him, what Enchanting did was crueler than he could imagine. Shen Luo's gentle eyes became gloomy. He looked at Ming with his lips slightly raised and said, "Do you come back now to marry her?" Ming smiled. "Will you agree?" The smile on Shen Luo's face gradually disappeared. He looked at him and slightly raised his eyebrows. "Try?" "I can't afford to try." Ming took out a cigarette from his pocket, took out one, and slowly lit it. He slowly said, "I already have one. I'll leave this one for you." As he spoke, he slowly exhaled a pale white smoke. "My woman is still waiting for me to go back and marry her." Shen Luo joked, "I didn't expect you to be so loyal." "It's easy to say, but it's not the same as you. You like one and marry the other." "Oh." Ming looked at him coldly. "I'm still curious. What did you do to Enchanting? Don't say stupid things like running away from marriage." "I don't believe it." When Shen Luo was about to speak, his cell phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID, but his expression did not change. He continued, "No matter what the reason is, no one will suspect me. You'd better take care of yourself." After answering the phone, Shen Luo turned to look at Ming with a deep meaning. After hanging up the phone, Shen Luo looked at Ming and said, "Enchanting woke up, and your mother is also there." As he spoke, he turned around and walked down the stairs. Ming looked at his back, and his eyes darkened. Seeing Shen Luo's reaction, even if Ming was stupid and naive, he knew that it must have something to do with this guy. But, what did Shen Luo do? Ming's matter was very sensational. Since she came to Paris, it was the first time she turned on the internet, which she hadn't used for a long time. She randomly searched, and all kinds of news about Ming popped up. Looking at the striking headlines, Yu Lily clicked on them and found that many things were related to her. Deep dig. The mistress of O's young master is the editor of his comics. Ming's mistress revealed. The woman who defeated Shen's daughter is actually an orphan. Counting the women who have nothing but easily capture the favor of the rich second generation, did the people in the country care so much about her now? If she went back, she would probably be drowned by the saliva of a single person. The reputation of being a mistress was really hateful in the hearts of the keyboard warriors in China. Yu Lily knew that it was safest for her to stay in China, but she couldn't help but feel disappointed. When would she be able to stand beside Ming openly? Suddenly, a message popped up on Weibo, and the text shocked Yu Lily. Ming's mistress's Weibo exposure. Yuli, "Miss Yu, what is it like to force the legal wife to commit suicide?" Topic, Shen's daughter suicide. There was a picture below, which was one of the few selfies that Ming had taken with Yu Lily. Yu Lily smiled like a flower, and Ming, who was wearing a burgundy suit, stood behind her, looking at her with a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes. They were so close that the tip of Ming's nose almost touched her hair. This was a photo from 5 years ago. At that time, Yu Lily had a young and childish face. Chapter 1052. Stealthily come stealthily go, too shameless, the mistress should go to hell. All expectations fail. 2333, she looks young, but how can she be so coquettish? Fox, de 11 hides in the world, she is young but has a big heart. It is really easy to be a mistress. Sure enough, without the education of parents, she has no bottom line. Maline's shopping agent. The lip color of the mistress in the picture is the classic look of the C family. I want a private message. Yu Lily looked at the Weibo and refreshed it. All of a sudden, there were several more comments, each of which was scolding her. Yu Lily felt uncomfortable. Suddenly, her mobile phone vibrated and she received a private message from Weibo. Unfollowed person's information, you look good. You can seduce Ming. You must be good at kung fu, right? How much money does Ming give you a month? I will give you double. Yu Lily was furious and opened the dialog box to edit, go to hell. However, before she sent it out, Yu Lily deleted those words one by one. No, I can't be angry, I can't admit it. However, there were several private messages. Shameless mistress, go to hell. Are you the mistress? You can do anything at such a young age, but you have to destroy other people's family. Smile, smile, go to hell. Don't let me see you, or I will beat you every time I see you. Picture, the picture sent was a selfie of Lily. Her face was painted with delicate makeup, and she looked high-spirited, petite and beautiful. This Lily was the Lily from 5 years ago. Lily browsed and found that there were a lot of replies to her Weibo, but all of them were scolding her. She was angry, but she couldn't show up. If Lily clicked like or commented, she would definitely become the target of public criticism without hesitation. Lily simply logged out of the account and threw the phone aside. But soon, she thought of the bug in her mind. Now Ming should have returned to China, and he should go to the hospital to see Enchanting as soon as possible. Lily picked up the phone again and opened it. Sure enough, she heard the voice coming over there. There was the voice of a middle-aged woman and Enchanting. Auntie, I'm sorry. Lily could clearly hear the sobs in Enchanting's voice. I'm sorry, I really can't take it anymore. These days, everyone has been sympathizing with me. Just before Ming ran away from the wedding, I thought I could be a good daughter-in-law to you, to be filial to you, to respect you, and to live with Ming. But I really didn't expect that Ming would run away from the wedding. Previously, I told my classmates and friends that I would have a happy life after marriage, but now I can't do it anymore. This feeling is like being stripped alive and thrown in front of them. Enchanting, the middle-aged woman also cried, and said with, and said, and. Chapter 1053. The conversation continued, and Lily guessed that this middle-aged woman was undoubtedly Ming's mother. She seemed to really like Enchanting. Listening to her tone, it was as if she was feeling sorry for her own daughter. Enchanting and Ming's mother already had such a deep relationship. That's right, it's been 4 years. How many 4 years can there be in a life? In these 4 years, Enchanting had been with Ming's mother as her future daughter-in-law. Lily couldn't compare with her at all. However, before Ming's mother could make the call, she stopped. Then she heard Ming shout, "Xiao O!" It was Ming. And Shen Luo then. You're awake? Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? Shen Luo asked several questions, but Enchanting didn't say anything. The situation seemed a little awkward, and at the same time, she heard light footsteps coming from behind. It was Ming's footsteps. Lily pricked up her ears to listen to the movement over there. It seemed that there were a lot of people coming. Now, Lily knew that it was Shen Luo and Ming's mother, and Enchanting. Mom, I'll talk to her. You go back first. I'll come home later. Ming's voice was familiar, but distant. Lily was glad that her little virus hadn't been scanned clearly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known what they were talking about. When Xiao Ziqing heard her son's words, she looked at Enchanting and Ming, stood up, turned around, and saw Shen Luo and's obviously not very good expression. She smiled and said, Luo, it's been hard on you these days. You've been by Enchanting's side, you're welcome. Enchanting is my sister. It's my duty. Shen Luo's face was gentle, and he nodded slightly. Xiao Ziqing nodded and smiled a little gratified. She said, Enchanting is really lucky to have such a good brother like you. Good brother. Enchanting heard Xiao Ziqing's praise for Shen Luo and her hands under the quilt slightly clenched. The hatred in her heart suddenly overflowed in her eyes, and overflowed to the tip of her eyebrows. When Shen Luo heard this, he glanced at Enchanting, who was lying on the bed. The smile on his face widened, and he turned his gaze back to her. He nodded slightly and said, You flatter me. Go out, big brother, Enchanting said without looking up. Her voice was a little dry as she said, Auntie, thank you for coming to see me. Enchanting, there's no need to stand on ceremony between us, Xiao Ziqing said with a straight face. Xiao O, remember to come home when you're done. Got it. O Ming waved his hand. O Ming watched as Xiao Ziqing and Shen Luo and walked out together. He then sat down on the chair that Xiao Ziqing had been sitting on. Shen Manting, what exactly do you want? You know that I hate you. Don't you think it's despicable of you to use such means? As soon as O Ming spoke, he did not hesitate to ridicule her. When Shen Manting heard that, she looked up at him. This was O Ming's true colors, especially when he was in front of her. For 4 years, he didn't hide it at all. He clearly showed his disgust for her in front of her. He didn't even want to pretend, which was very annoying. However, she had no choice. O Ming, Shen Manting called out, and her eyes were pleading. Marry me, okay? Dash. Chapter 1054. Her voice was neither high nor low, but when she looked at him with a pair of slightly tired and listless eyes, there was a hint of pleading in her eyes. O Ming looked at her and smiled. Shen Manting, I said that I wouldn't marry you. Do you think that by committing suicide, you can force me to marry you? I beg you, O Ming, I beg you, marry me. Shen Manting leaned toward O Ming and grabbed his sleeves with both hands. Her eyes were full of helplessness. Why are you doing this? You promised me before that I would help you save Auntie and you would marry me. I have waited for you for 4 years. Can't you pretend? It doesn't matter if you don't love me after marriage. It doesn't matter if we can only have a marriage of convenience. Marry me, and I will help you. Why me? O Ming was puzzled. He looked at Shen Manting coldly and said, You know that I won't have feelings for you. Why do you like me? You and Shen Luo, and, hearing the name Shen Luo, and, Shen Manting's face turned pale, and she shouted out reflexively, No. No? What kind of answer is that? Seeing her reaction, O Ming felt that there was definitely more to it than meets the eye. What happened between you and Shen Luo, and? O Ming looked at her hand that was pulling his sleeves, and his eyes were slightly deep. He continued to say, Shen Manting, you are a smart person. This suicide is definitely not because of me. No one was stupid. Shen Manting used him more than she loved him. O Ming was clear about that. Shen Manting also clearly realized that O Ming was talking about suicide, not suicide. In other words, he might have already noticed something. A scheming glint flashed across her beautiful big eyes. A plan had already sprouted in her heart. Seeing that she did not speak, O Ming continued, If I can run away from marriage once, I will run away a second time. No one will be happy in a forced marriage, and you don't like me at all. Why bother to force us to be together like this? O Ming, why don't we make a deal? Shen Manting looked at O Ming and said, Don't you like that mistress? That woman surnamed you, you can keep her by your side. If we get married, I will absolutely not hinder you. I just want the title of Mrs. O. You can live with her and be with her every day. I won't mind, I mind. O Ming's face darkened. Why should my woman be wronged? You are wrong, O Ming. You are not wronging her, but me. Do you think that if you don't marry of me, you can marry her? Don't you know how much your mother values family and background? If you really want to be with that woman, you won't be able to get past your mother. She sneered and said, Even if you don't marry me, Zhang Manting and Li Manting will replace me tomorrow and become your wife. You of any one of you of you, shen of her. Her words made O Ming's face darkened. I'm the only one who can do that. I agree to this marriage of convenience. This is already my biggest concession. I just don't have a title. If that woman really loves you and wants to be with you, she won't care about these things on the surface, right? Shen of you, Lily's heart clearly, like a knife, cut again and again. Chapter 1055. Shen Manting's words were very reasonable, but it was also a very real problem. Yu Lily had nothing. How could she be worthy of O Ming? In other words, even if Lily's parents were alive, how could they compare with Enchanting? The Shen family might not be as rich as the O family, but as a famous family in the capital, many people couldn't compare with them. How could a family like the O family not like such a daughter-in-law? If that woman really loves you and wants to be with you, she won't care about these things on the surface, right? Enchanting's words were like pearls. What Enchanting was talking about was the status. If she loved him, would she really not care about these things? But, she cared. She was damned concerned and damned greedy. Was it because she didn't love him enough? Lily's eyes looked down, slightly dark. Enchanting's voice fell, her eyes fixed on O Ming, and she continued to say, if she doesn't want to, it can only mean that she doesn't love you enough. Or, she is with you for your money. It's a good chance to test her. You're wrong, O Ming interrupted her, looked at Enchanting, and said seriously, the more I love someone, the more I want to give her all the good things. My wife can only be her. I love her, and I can only have her. Enchanting heard this and snorted, O Ming, it's not appropriate to say this in front of me. According to my understanding of you, you are not suitable to say this kind of sour smell of love. It's disgusting. Whether you believe it or not, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Enchanting, let's just leave it at that. There's no need to entangle each other any further. O Ming pulled his hand back and said coldly, Shen Luo entreats you very well. Cherish him. O Ming, you are crazy. He is my brother. Even though what he had done to her had long surpassed the boundaries of siblings. Thinking of what he did to her that day, Enchanting couldn't help but clench her teeth, and a sense of shame and taboo suddenly swept over her. In the past few days in a coma, Enchanting had been having a dream. A nightmare in which she fell into the punishment of God, fell into hell, and was despised by thousands of people. In the dream, Yi Yu asked her hysterically why she did this. Enchanting was speechless, and the embarrassment in her heart was brought from the dream to reality. Especially when she saw Yi Yu, Enchanting didn't dare to look at her eyes, and she didn't dare to face Yi Yu's kindness. He narrowed his eyes and said, you know that you and Shen Luo and are not related by blood at all. You can't call it a relationship at all. Even if you really have a shameful relationship, shut up. Enchanting reacted violently. She looked up and shouted, you're the one who has a shameful relationship. O Ming was interrupted. He narrowed his eyes and looked at her suspiciously. Chapter 1056. Are you threatening me? I'm stating the facts. I think you have already experienced the power of public opinion in China. I don't need to remind you how unlucky you can be. You should go and come back to me after thinking about it. No, I'll tell you the answer now. O Ming looked at Enchanting coldly and said word by word, I can only have one wife in my life, one woman, and that is you, Lily. I can't marry you, and I can't marry other women. I'll go back and deal with my mother myself. You don't have to worry about it. While speaking, O Ming had been paying attention to Enchanting's expression. Sure enough, Enchanting's expression was very ugly. Seeing her expression, O Ming looked at her coldly, but suddenly he seemed to think of something and said, oh, by the way, it was not my idea to run away from the marriage. You don't know that, do you? When Enchanting heard this, her eyes narrowed and she looked up at him. I made a deal with Shen Luo and... O Ming smiled and then turned to open the door of the ward. What do you mean? Enchanting asked, but O Ming had no intention of answering and had gone out in the blink of an eye. He made a deal with Shen Luo and... Did O Ming run away from the marriage because of the deal he made with Shen Luo and... Enchanting's heart trembled. It was as if all the doubts and suspicions in her mind had been fused together in an instant. The truth of the matter immediately became clear. The door of the ward was gently closed, making a slight sound. Enchanting looked in the direction of O Ming's departure and understood everything in her heart. Despicable. Her anger seemed to be ignited, and in an instant, it was a raging fire, completely releasing the hatred that she had suppressed. Ah! Enchanting screamed and slapped her thigh with both hands, shouting, Beast, beast! He clearly said that before she got married, he would never interfere in her affairs, and he would never interfere in her life. Now there were only a few days before the new year, and Shen Luo had not done any of the things he promised. While Shen Manting was angry, she also felt a deep sense of helplessness. So what if he didn't do it? So what if he changed his mind? Shen Manting had no way at all. She was a foster orphan, and because of the old lady of the Shen family, she became the daughter of the Shen family. The Shen family did not mind having another mouth to eat, and Shen Longhua did not mind having another daughter. However, she couldn't help but mind losing this family. After living for more than 20 years, she finally had a complete family. She cherished it more than anyone else. The Shen family and Shen Luo were bound together for good or ill. If Shen Luo hadn't gone overboard, she wouldn't have come up with this idea to warn Shen Luo not to act rashly. However, this was just a delaying tactic. If O Ming insisted on not marrying her, based on the current reputation of the Shen family and the current rumors, they would definitely not be able to count on a family of equal social status. But with the Shen family's reputation, they definitely couldn't find someone with an ordinary status. The door to the ward was gently pushed open. Shen Manting looked up and saw someone she hadn't expected at all. Yi Yuyu saw the tears on Shen Manting's face. She turned around and closed the door. After locking it, she walked over to Shen Manting's bed and sat down. Chapter 1057. Yi Yuyu came in and looked at Shen Manting. She pulled a stool and sat on the edge of her bed. Shen Manting felt even more guilty when she saw Yi Yuyu's attitude. Aunt. Yi Yuyu's expression looked very calm. She still had a soft face, and she seemed to be at peace with the world. Yi Yuyu was a very good person and a very good woman. She was tough and patient. For a long time, no matter how Yi Yuyu was bullied and ridiculed by the old lady of the Shen family, she never retorted or became impatient. There was only one reason, and that was Shen Luo. Shen Manting saw her insistence on Shen Luo. If Yi Yuyu knew that Shen Luo and I had done that kind of thing, would she still continue to stay in the Shen family? If it was because of me that Yi Yuyu and Shen Luo divorced, Yi Yuyu would be very sad, wouldn't she? Thinking of this, Shen Manting was a little restless. Are you feeling better? Yi Yuyu reached out and touched her forehead, saying, Brother Luo has been by your side these days. Now that you have woken up, he finally went back. If he didn't go back, I think he would become an immortal. Shen Manting's heart was even more shocked, and her eyes became evasive. What does Yi Yuyu mean by that? Could it be that she sensed something? Sister-in-law, aunt, Yi Yuyu interrupted Shen Manting and shouted, I ordered takeout for you. Brother Luo said that you like to eat the food of Jibi restaurant, so I ordered a few of their signature dishes. You should like it. Yi Yuyu said with a smile, but Shen Manting felt that Yi Yuyu's words were meaningful. Sister-in-law, thank you. Shen Manting lowered her head slightly, but couldn't help looking up at her, trying to find something wrong with her face. You have been working hard these days. You have to take care of me while working, aunt, it's okay. Yi Yuyu looked at her with a smile. But you have a really good relationship with Brother Luo. I really envy you. Fortunately, I know that you are brother and sister. Otherwise, I will definitely be very jealous of you. Brother Luo has never been so good to me. Shen Manting's heart sank. There was too much information hidden in Yi Yuyu's words. Was she warning him? Or could it be that Yi Yuyu was simply narrating the story? Shen Manting wasn't sure. She smiled sheepishly and said, Sister-in-law, maybe it's because you and Big Brother have just gotten married, so your feelings for each other aren't very deep. Perhaps, although. Yi Yuyu laughed bitterly. I've known him since I was a teenager, and I've been married for half a year. You've only been back for 7 or 8 years. Is this the difference between us living under the same roof? Sister-in-law, okay, you rest. I still have to work. I have to shoot a variety show tonight. I'll come to see you after work. All right. Yi Yuyu stood up, slung her bag over her shoulder, and walked out. Yi Yuyu had just stepped out of the hospital when she saw Shen Luo and returning from afar. He was still wearing the same clothes, and his face didn't look any different from usual. It was as gentle as jade, just like the big brother who often solved math problems for her. However, at this moment, he returned to Shenmanting's ward. Even if they were siblings, shouldn't a married brother and an unmarried sister maintain some distance? Chapter 1058. In the ward, Shenmanting's ears finally quieted down. She picked up her mobile phone and casually scrolled through it. She found that her incident had caused a sensation all over the country. As she scrolled, she seemed to see a shadow in front of her. Shenmanting looked up and saw Shen Luo, who she didn't know when he had arrived. Shenmanting was caught off guard and was shocked. She shrank back a little. Shen Luo didn't avoid her at all. Instead, he took a step forward and looked at Shenmanting with a sneer. "Do you think you are very smart?" Shenmanting shrank back. Seeing his expression, she subconsciously thought of the time when he locked her in the room and did that to her a few days ago. Her heartbeat quickened. She looked at him with some fear and shouted, "What do you want to do?" Such a shout made Shen Luo laugh. He stepped forward and said, "You're warning me? Or threaten me? Do you think it will work?" "No. And it may even irritate Shen Luo." Shenmanting looked at him with her eyes full of hatred and uncontrollable fear. Faced with such a dangerous and tough attitude, Shenmanting unconsciously shrank to the corner of the bed. Looking back, she found that there was no retreat. Shenmanting looked up and gritted her teeth. She whispered, "Bastard. I am your sister." Shen Luo chuckled. "Sister? Do you still think of me as a big brother? Have you ever seen a big brother who would have that kind of interest in a sister, huh?" Although it wasn't the first time Yu Lily had learned of the abnormal feelings between them, when she heard those words, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Brother and sister. This kind of taboo relationship, even if they were not related by blood, was still difficult to accept. How perverted. However, would there be any crucial information in their conversation? The whole world said that Shenmanting committed suicide because Ming ran away from the wedding. But according to Yu Lily's impression of Shenmanting, this possibility was very small. Yu Lily frowned, opened the recording software, and pressed the start button. Shenmanting's voice could be heard from the other end of the phone. She yelled, "That's because you're a pervert." "No, no, no." Shen Luo took a step closer as he spoke. Shenmanting's face tensed up when she saw this. Shen Luo continued, "You just haven't experienced the fun of it. It's like a cat catching a mouse. The mouse is afraid of death, so it's afraid of being caught by the cat. But when the cat doesn't want to catch the mouse anymore, you, the mouse, will definitely be disappointed." How could he bear to let her be disappointed? There was obvious disgust in Shenmanting's eyes. With a disgusted expression, she said, "Don't take your own ideas and put them in someone else's shoes. When a cat chases a mouse, it only kills and eats it. I'd rather you kill me. TSK, why are you pretending to be a chaste woman? In reality, isn't it just to escape from me? Anyone can do it." Shen Luo took a step closer and said slowly, "I'm not as good as Ming. That person is still unwilling to touch you, and in the end, it was me who took advantage of him. Your first time is still mine." Chapter 1059. The sound came out clearly. Yi Yuyu leaned against the wall and listened to the sound inside. She covered her mouth in disbelief. She knew that Shen Luo's feelings for Shenmanting were unusual, but she never thought that they were in such a relationship. Shen Luo like Shenmanting? Your first time is still mine, what does that mean? Did Shenmanting and Shen Luo already? No, it's impossible. Shen Luo is not that kind of person. How could he do that kind of thing? They have been married for more than half a year, and Shen Luo has never touched me. How could he touch another woman? No way, Yi Yuyu's heart was beating fast, but at the same time, her mind was in a mess. She pricked up her ears and listened to the sound inside. Her back was tightly pressed against the wall, and she did not dare to move. Shen Luo and heard Shenmanting's roar and gently laughed. He said meaningfully, "I'm here. You don't have to be so loud." Shenmanting's breathing became more rapid. She looked at Shen Luo and in front of her as if she was looking at a madman. "I want to sue you. You didn't take any safety measures that day. It's only been 2 days." Shen Luo and laughed and approached her slightly. He whispered, "Why bother? If you want it, I can give it to you at any time." As he spoke, he reached out to touch the button of his shirt. Shenmanting was even more shocked. She desperately shrank back and shouted, "You pervert, beast, you will be punished by heaven. You will be punished by heaven." Shenmanting's eyes were red. She stared at Shen Luo and shouted angrily, "If I let Grandma know, do you think Grandma will let you go? Let Grandma know? What are you going to tell Grandma? That I, Shen Luo, raped you?" Shen Luo's voice was as gentle as jade. His voice was pleasant to the ear, but it was filled with extreme cruelty. He stared at Shenmanting and said sarcastically, "What if I explained to Grandma that you were the one who seduced me?" When Yi Yuyu heard this, her legs went soft, and she collapsed. Raped me? It turned out that Shen Luo raped Shenmanting? But why? Wasn't she his sister? Yi Yuyu recalled how attentive Shen Luo had been to Shenmanting over the past few days. Shen Luo had never been so attentive even when he was with his parents. It turned out that it was because Shen Luo liked Shenmanting. It wasn't because of sibling love. The moment Yi Yuyu fell, her cell phone rang at the same time. The classic, cheerful ringtone was very iconic. Yi Yuyu turned pale with fright. She quickly turned off the sound on her phone, got up from the ground, and ran. In the ward, both Shen Luo and Shenmanting were shocked at the same time. Shen Luo turned his head abruptly, and a sharp light flashed across his gentle eyes. He strode out and pushed the door open. At a glance, he saw Yi Yuyu's retreating back. When Shen Luo saw her, he had a bad feeling and shouted, "Yi Yuyu, stop." When Yi Yuyu heard the shout, her footsteps quickened. Tears, like a faucet, flowed down endlessly. So disgusting. Chapter 1060. Yi Yuyu clearly heard the footsteps of Shen Luo running up from behind, very fast and very urgent. However, Yi Yuyu didn't want to stop at this moment. She didn't want to be seen by him, and she didn't want to be caught by him. Why, this Shen Luo was completely different from the Shen Luo in her memory. As she ran all the way, scenes flashed in Yi Yuyu's mind. Shen Luo smiled, gentle, and the words he said at the beginning, "If I am not married when I am 28 years old, I will marry you." Shen Luo's warm and low voice seemed to be ringing in her ears. When Shen Luo said these words with a smile, his eyes were full of tenderness for her. It was a promise. It was a promise. But why, now everything is different? She finally married him as she wished, but her heart was getting more and more empty, and more anxious. All the time, she had been wondering if she didn't do a good job, and what did not satisfy him enough. All the time, Yi Yuyu had been reflecting on herself, and also wondered if Shen Luo didn't love her. However, Yi Yuyu would never think that Shen Luo had fallen in love with another person, and this person was so close to them. So disgusting, Yi Yuyu ran all the way, and she didn't hide her crying. Many people looked over, and Shen Luo caught up from behind, and the distance between them was getting closer and closer. It was a long black Bentley with a somewhat retro style. It looked grand, unique, and eye-catching. The most eye-catching was the license plate number, Kong A88888. It was very eye-catching, and almost everyone's eyes were on it as soon as it stopped at the entrance of the hospital. Yi Yuyu also saw this car, and at a glance, she recognized whose car it was. Yi Yuyu quickly ran forward and knocked on the driver's seat window. Soon, the window was rolled down. A wheat-skinned face turned over. He was angular, red lips, and white teeth. He wore a big black sunglasses on his face, and wore a military green coat. Seeing Yi Yuyu's tears, Li Jinnan took off the sunglasses. He frowned, and there was obvious displeasure in his phoenix eyes. He looked at Yi Yuyu and asked, "What's wrong?" Yi Yuyu sniffed, shook her head, and said, "GM Li, can you give me a ride?" As she spoke, she looked behind her. Shen Luo and had almost caught up to her. She didn't know how to face him. Before she heard those things, she was his wife. However, after hearing the conversation between him and Shen Manting, Yi Yuyu only had one thought in her mind: disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. Li Jinnan followed her line of sight and saw Shen Luo and running over. Did they quarrel? Li Jinnan raised an eyebrow and said, "Get in the car." "Thank you." Yi Yuyu quickly ran to the front passenger seat and opened the door. Seeing this scene, Shen Luo and was furious and roared, "Yi Yuyu, you dare to go up and try." When Yi Yuyu heard that, her body stiffened. She turned to look at Shen Luo and a strange feeling washed over her like a surging tide. Without hesitation, she got into the car. As she slammed the door shut, he started the engine. Yi Yuyu was caught off guard. Her body swayed, and she cried out in surprise. Chapter 1061. Those 3 words were clearly ringing in her ears, but when they entered Yi Yuyu's ears, they seemed to have come from a very, very distant place. They were ethereal and unreal, and Yi Yuyu's mind went blank. Perhaps it was because of this voice, or because of Li Jinnan's completely strange embrace, Yi Yuyu completely forgot how to react for a moment. Li Jinnan clearly noticed Yi Yuyu's stiffness. He held the steering wheel with one hand, looked ahead, and turned to look at Yi Yuyu beside him. There was a very strange feeling in his heart. But soon, he gently pushed her away and said, "Seat belt." After being pushed away, Yi Yuyu didn't know when the tears that were still flowing from her eyes had stopped. His face suddenly became boiling hot. Yi Yuyu didn't have to look to know that her face must be frighteningly red. Yi Yuyu didn't even dare to raise her head. She pulled the seat belt next to her, fastened it, and sat in the car obediently. Li Jinnan glanced through the rearview mirror and saw that Shen Luo and couldn't catch up at all, so he slowed down the car. Looking at Yi Yuyu, Li Jinnan took a few tissues and handed them to her. He asked, "Did you quarrel?" Yi Yuyu lowered her head and took it. She shook her head gently and said, "No, I can't quarrel with him." "So now you are running away from home?" Li Jinnan's voice was somewhat ambiguous. Yi Yuyu didn't know if it was an illusion, but Li Jinnan's voice seemed to be a little happy. He said, "If I remember correctly, that person should be your husband, right?" "Yes." "Why did you quarrel?" Yi Yuyu didn't answer, but looked up at Li Jinnan through the rearview mirror. Her eyes were full of curiosity and doubt. Li Jinnan's phoenix eyes looked calm, as if what he just asked was just a casual question. However, Yi Yuyu didn't want to answer, so she lowered her head and didn't speak. For a time, the air was filled with indescribable silence and strangeness. Li Jinnan simply changed the topic and asked, "Where to?" "I'll take you there. You can drop me off on the side of the road." "Thank you, President Li." Yi Yuyu tilted her head and looked out the window. "I still have a lot of things to settle and work to do. I won't trouble you." His voice was distant and polite to the point that it chilled one's heart. Li Jinnan looked down at his wristwatch and said, "It's time for dinner." "You haven't had dinner yet, right? Why don't we eat together?" "GM Li, I still have work to do. I'm a little busy, so I won't be joining you for lunch today. Why don't we eat another day?" Yi Yuyu wasn't in the mood. Furthermore, the relationship between her and Li Jinnan was awkward. What happened that night, although no one mentioned it first, was the first thing that happened. However, the loss of her first time that day was like a thorn in her heart, making her feel very uncomfortable. When Li Jinnan heard that, he asked casually, "What job?" Kingstown TV's variety show is about to start. This show's ratings are pretty good. It wasn't easy for me to get it. I can't be late. Oh, I see. Lee Jin-nan raised his eyebrows slightly. It was recorded at this time. As he spoke, he turned the car around and headed in the opposite direction. Yi Yu was stunned. Only then did she realize that the meal was just a pretense. He was trying to find out where she worked. Chapter 1062. Yi Yu turned her head and looked at Lee Jin-nan strangely. Then, she didn't speak again. It was rush hour. She might not be able to get a taxi if she went out. She looked at the time. It would probably take a while to get there from here. Forget it, forget it. Yi Yu kept turning her head to look out of the window and didn't dare to look back. Seeing that the surrounding buildings were getting more and more familiar, Yi Yu turned her head and said when she saw the TV station, "Presidently, thank you. We are here. You can drop me off here." Okay. Lee Jin-nan responded, but he didn't stop the car. Instead, he drove to the gate of the TV station. Yi Yu was shocked and immediately knew what he wanted to do. She shouted, "GM Lee, you can just drop me here. If you stop at the entrance of the television station, there will definitely be some gossip." Lee Yu was shocked. Do you know how stars become famous? Lee Jin-nan didn't care. He glanced at her and chuckled. Yi Yu was even more shocked. Does Lee Jin-nan want to use this to create hype? Of course, some hype is one of the important factors for stars to become famous, but with Lee Jin-nan? Absolutely not. Yi Yu's heart was beating very fast. She shouted, "President Lee, I am married. If my husband's family sees any bad news about me, I am afraid." But before she finished speaking, the speed of the Bentley slowly slowed down. Lee Jin-nan stopped the car and said, "Go." It was not far from the TV station, but it was also a blind spot from the gate. Yi Yu's words were all choked in her throat. The air was filled with unspeakable awkwardness. It turned out that I was being unrequited. Yi Yu blushed, but then she didn't want to stay for long. After unbuckling the seatbelt, she grabbed her bag and ran away. Lee Jin-nan watched her flee in a flustered manner, and the corners of his lips curled up subconsciously. He started the car and turned around to go back. Yi Yu looked at the eye-catching Bentley. All the heat on her face didn't ease, but intensified. Damn it. If this happened a few more times, I'm afraid I won't be able to live. Yi Yu wasn't a superstar. She wasn't even a B-list or B-list celebrity. As soon as she walked in, the makeup artist, who had already made an appointment with her, snapped when she saw her and shouted, "What the hell are you doing? If it weren't for Mira, I wouldn't be helping a small celebrity like you with makeup. Just when you were thinking how great you were, do you know what time it is? You're a whole 5 minutes late." Hearing that, Yi Yu's face turned redder. In the face of such an angry scolding, she wanted to refute, but she quickly lowered her head and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, Miss Ada. I'm late. There won't be a next time." Ada's anger subsided when she saw Yi Yu's attitude. She warned, "Be more careful next time. Go wash your face." "Yes." Yi Yu lowered her head and went inside. After washing her face, she came out again. Although they were a few minutes late, the recording was still considered a success. After all, she wasn't an important guest, so even if she was late, no one would notice. In such a program, all Yi Yu did was show her face and make her presence known. Chapter 1063. Shen Luo and had called her many times. When she was about to call him back, she heard someone shouting, "Wow, that's so shocking. The woman who committed suicide yesterday is having sex with her brother." Shen Luo and said, "Wow, that's amazing. The woman who committed suicide yesterday is having sex with her brother." Hearing this, Yi Yu was shocked. Xiao Chen's originally calm heart was like a small lake that was surging uncontrollably when he heard these words. It was as if the calm lake at the bottom of his heart had surged with great waves. She turned her head suddenly and asked, "Who is the woman you are talking about?" Yi Yuyu's reaction was very big. Seeing her reaction, the two backstage staff looked at each other and said, "Who else can it be? Isn't it the Enchanting who committed suicide these days?" Oh my god, it's an amazing reversal. Didn't they say that she committed suicide because Ming ran away from the marriage? Now such a thing happened. It's a slap in the face. Such words made Yi Yuyu's heart beat faster, and she asked, "How do you know?" "What the hell, I'm afraid the whole country knows it now." Suddenly it was exposed anonymously on Weibo, and it's a recording. Recording? Yi Yuyu lowered her head and unlocked the phone. Sure enough, when she opened it, she saw the crazy news on Weibo. After she opened it, it was all about Enchanting, Shen Luo and Ming. Slap in the face? Mysterious man reveals the truth about Shen's daughter's suicide. Amazing reversal. The woman who committed suicide in love had sex with her married brother. The evidence is conclusive. The recording of Shen brother and sister having sex is exposed on the internet. The brother raped the sister? When Yi Yuyu saw the series of messages, she felt as if she were in a dream. She had just heard such news in the afternoon, and less than 3 hours later, the internet had been turned upside down. Yi Yuyu just opened a news, and before she read it carefully, she received a call from Shen Luo. Seeing this call, Yi Yuyu had mixed feelings. After picking up the phone, before Yi Yuyu had time to speak, she heard Shen Luo's angry voice coming from the other side, "Yi Yuyu." Yi Yuyu was shocked by his angry roar, and only heard him continue to say, "You are very good, very good. Are you satisfied now? Now not only Enchanting, but also I will be finished." Yi Yuyu was stunned and asked, "Brother Luo?" Before Yi Yuyu could finish her sentence, Shen Luo continued, "Come back. I want to have a good talk with you." Before Yi Yuyu could make a sound, he had hung up the phone. Yi Yuyu began to panic. His heart felt terribly empty. This matter was not simple. Shen Luo had never been so angry before, and it was directed at her. Could it be that Shen Luo thought that she was the culprit? At that thought, Yi Yuyu's heart skipped a beat. She quickly picked up her phone and wanted to call Shen Luo, but the line was busy. Without further ado, she picked up her handbag and ran out. He took a taxi and headed home. Yi Yuyu scrolled through Weibo and saw a new Weibo post from an empty account. The title was eye-catching, "The Truth Behind the Shen Family's Precious Daughter's Suicide." It turned out that it was caused by her brother forcing himself on her. Chapter 1064. Yi Yuyu clicked on the recording and heard Shen Luo's voice. The content was exactly the same as the conversation she had overheard at the door in the afternoon. There was no difference in the voice or the content. The only difference was the size and clarity. Some parts of the conversation that Yi Yuyu hadn't heard very clearly were played clearly in the recording. Without a doubt, it must have been recorded from a very close distance. But it wasn't her. Could it be Enchanting? But what good would it do for Enchanting to release the recording and its content at such a time? Nothing. Nothing at all. Yi Yuyu couldn't find a reason for Enchanting to release the recording, but if it was Yi Yuyu, it would make sense. A person would frame another person for no other reason than jealousy or hatred. So, Shen Luo insisted that she was the one who played the recording, didn't he? Yi Yuyu's heart sank to the bottom. When Yu Lily released the recording, she was also hesitant. If such content was released, the consequences could be big or small. But, for her, it was undoubtedly good. But, wouldn't it hurt Yi Yuyu? After all, Shen Luo was her husband. Therefore, before Yu Lily released the recording, she called Yi Qianqian to ask. After a moment of silence, Yi Qianqian said, "If it's really like what you said, there's no point in forcing Yi Yuyu to be with Shen Luo." With that, Yu Lily knew what to do. She registered an account and located the IP address to Canada. Then, she began to release the recording. Sure enough, when the recording was released, it caused a sensation on the internet. She picked up her cell phone and dialed Oh Ming's number. Oh Ming seemed to be busy at the moment. It rang for a long time before he picked up the phone. He sounded a little tired. Oh Ming, I just did something big. Yu Lily's voice was mysterious. Oh Ming was silent for a moment before he asked, that recording, did you release it? Yes. Yu Lily lay on the bed with a smile on her face. In this way, Enchanting can't marry you, right? How did you get it? I installed a monitoring virus in her phone. When they were talking, I happened to hear them, so I recorded those words. When Oh Ming heard that, he wasn't as happy as Yu Lily had imagined. Instead, his expression became solemn. Yu Lily didn't hear Oh Ming speak, so she was a little confused and called out, Oh Ming, are you listening? Yes. There was no joy in Oh Ming's voice. Instead, he sighed and said, it's really you. Next time you do something like this, remember to tell me first. This time, you were too impulsive. Enchanting was right. Without Enchanting, there would still be Zhang Manting and Li Manting tomorrow. Oh Ming's wife could be many Mantings, but she couldn't be Yu Lily. Yu Lily didn't understand what he meant and asked, what's wrong? Things are not as simple as you think. Stay in Paris for the time being and don't come back. I'll pick you up after I've dealt with things here. Oh Ming's voice carried a hint of coaxing, as if he was coaxing a child. Chapter 1065. Yu Lily's voice was like a layer of sweet and sticky honey, covering Oh Ming's heart, making him feel indescribably satisfied. Unconsciously, Oh Ming curled his lips and responded softly. He said slowly, I miss you too. It won't be long. When I'm done here, I'll officially bring you back. At that time, he would officially give her an identity. But, now was not the time. Yu Lily understood Oh Ming's dilemma, nodded and asked, are you busy? Well, a little bit. Then you go ahead, I'll call you later. Okay, go to bed early. Good night. Good night. After saying goodbye, Oh Ming felt warm in his heart. But when he turned his head, he saw Qiao Ziqing at a glance. Qiao Ziqing didn't know how long she had been standing behind him, looking at Oh Ming with disappointment in her eyes. Oh Ming felt bad in his heart. When he was about to speak, he heard Qiao Ziqing say, oh, what kind of woman are you looking for? Not only is she not educated, but she also has no brains. The Shen family has been friends with our family for many years. Now the Shen family has become like this, and it can't be separated from your mistress. Oh, what do you want me to say about you? Mom, it's not what you think, in fact, I heard it all, and you still want to lie to me. Qiao Ziqing shouted and looked disappointed. She stared at her son and roared, I won't allow you to be with such a woman. Such a woman has tarnished the threshold of our family. Break up with me immediately, and don't contact her in the future. Qiao Ziqing's words were full of anger. When Oh Ming heard that, his face, which was originally quite good, suddenly darkened. Looking at his mother's serious and angry expression, he said, Mom, Yu Lily is not the kind of person you think she is. She is an orphan, but she is much better than Enchanting, a two-faced, selfish woman. Shut up. Qiao Ziqing was even more furious and roared, I think you are bewitched by that woman. What kind of magic potion did she give you? That kind of woman, for the sake of money, she would do anything in front of you, do you think I don't know? Oh Ming was also angry and said in a low voice, Mom, she's not that kind of person. If she did it for money, she wouldn't have broken up with me in the first place. If she was that kind of woman, do you think she would still be with Enchanting? Qiao Ziqing's breathing became more rapid, her chest heaving up and down as she shouted, Crazy, you're really crazy. Oh Ming, I thought that when you grew up, your thinking would be more mature. How could you still be so naive? These are all tricks. That kind of woman is best at playing these kinds of tricks. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I haven't met her before? When your father was young, it was common for him to meet this kind of woman. If it wasn't for my high vigilance, do you think there would be a place for us in this house? Mom, she's different from the other women you've met. She's not the kind of woman you're talking about. I'm in my 30s, so I can still differentiate. You don't have to worry about me. I hope I can make my own decisions about my marriage. Oh Ming's voice was tinged with anger, but his tone was extremely calm and determined. Chapter 1066. Oh Ming turned pale with fright and rushed forward to support Xiao Ziqing. Xiao Ziqing covered her waist with one hand and held Oh Ming tightly with the other. She shouted, "Oh Ming, listen to me. Break up with that woman, okay? I'm begging you as your mother, okay?" As he spoke, he choked with sobs and cried out in pain. "You're bewitched by that woman now, but in the future, you'll feel that what I did was right. That kind of woman has no redeeming qualities at all. Don't talk." Oh Ming looked flustered. He quickly helped Xiao Ziqing up and said, "I'll take you back to take your medicine. Don't talk and don't move." Xiao Ziqing's hands clutched Oh Ming's sleeves tightly. Her well-maintained figure seemed a little crooked at this moment. She shouted, "Promise me first that you will break up with that woman. Don't talk." Oh Ming was angry with her. He simply picked her up and asked, "Where did you put the medicine?" "I don't want to take medicine. You're my only son, and even my only son doesn't listen to me. Before she could finish her sentence, Xiao Ziqing groaned in pain and said, "I might as well, just die." Oh Ming was so angry that he almost cursed. He strode into her room and gently placed her on the bed. He turned around and searched the room. He asked, "Where did you put the medicine?" "I don't know." Xiao Ziqing was in so much pain that her body was convulsing, but her voice was still full of energy. She shouted, "If you don't listen to me, I'll die in front of you." Oh Ming pursed his lips and stopped flipping through the book. He stood up and walked out. Xiao Ziqing saw this and was even more confused. Then, tears fell down and she shouted, "You damn heartless man. Do you really want your mother to die rather than break up with that woman? Why did I give birth to you?" Ah. Her voice became softer and softer. Xiao Ziqing hugged her body and curled up. She softly moaned in pain and whispered, "Where did Lao O go? I'm going to die. Your son wants me to die." However, before Xiao Ziqing could finish her sentence, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard from outside. Oh Ming held a white bottle of medicine in his hand. After opening the package, he fed it to Xiao Ziqing. Xiao Ziqing ate it in a daze and fell asleep on the bed. It was obviously a cold day, but Oh Ming was so scared that he was sweating. He touched his face and checked her breathing. When he found that she was getting calmer, he breathed a sigh of relief. After letting his mother lie down and tucking her in, he straightened up and looked at Xiao Ziqing helplessly. The young ones were hard to deal with, and the old ones were also hard to deal with. Why were all the women around him so restless? Oh Ming sighed. He turned around and went back to his room to hide the spare medicine. "She actually used her illness to threaten me to break up with you, Lily. It seems that I have to speed up the implementation of my plan." Lily was always paying attention to the developments on Weibo. In just 4 hours, the first Weibo post had more than 100,000 likes and tens of thousands of comments. However, just as she was engrossed in reading the comments, the internet speed jumped, and the page changed to 404. Chapter 1067. She was the one who posted it. She hadn't deleted it, so it had to be deleted by the authorities. But, isn't it too late to delete the post now? Lily clicked on the top search on Weibo and looked around. Almost all of it had been deleted. Tisk, it's a blatant lie. But, Lily wasn't stupid enough to log into that account at this time. That account had probably been targeted long ago. If she logged in, the moment she logged in, she could be targeted by hackers. With Yu Lily's current skills, she wasn't 100% sure that she wouldn't be tracked. She searched for the account name, and sure enough, it had been 404. Haha, but, immediately, Yu Lily felt that something was wrong. All the major marketing accounts began to publish new content about a certain celebrity taking drugs. In a flash, the celebrity's name was all over the screen. In a flash, it was pushed to the top search. The change was so fast that Yu Lily was caught off guard. Changing the topic? Changing the target? The topic came too fast. Without a doubt, it must be Shenluo An's doing. Yu Lily looked around and found that the incident between Shenluo An and Enchanting had been completely replaced. Now, most people's attention had been shifted to the celebrity taking drugs. That's something. But those who should have seen it must have seen it, and those who should have heard it must have heard it all. Moreover, Yu Lily had a backup. It would come in handy sooner or later. Yi Yu had a small apartment in Kingstown. Usually, she lived alone. This time, because Enchanting was holding her wedding in Kingstown, it was temporarily used as a temporary residence for her family. For example, Shenluo and Enchanting, and the servant Nanny Zhang. At this time, Nanny Zhang should be taking care of Enchanting in the hospital. So, only Shenluo An was there. If it had been any other time, Yi Yu would have been very happy to hear the news. But today, there was an indescribable sense of heaviness. When Yi Yu returned home, it was already past 10 p.m., very late. With an uneasy heart, Yi Yu took out the key and opened the door. The living room was very dark without the light on. Yi Yu's eyes had good night vision. Even in a very dark place, she could see clearly. Just as he was about to reach for the lamp, a figure suddenly stood up from the sofa in front of him. Yi Yu was shocked and took a step back. At the same time, she pressed the button on the light and shouted, "Who is it?" The lights came on. With a glance, Yi Yu saw the figure inside. It was a man wearing a bright green sweater. His body was tall and straight, but his face was very gloomy. Shenluo An walked toward Yi Yu. Step by step, his footsteps were steady and slow. When she saw that it was Shenluo An, she didn't feel relieved. Instead, she felt an indescribable sense of heaviness and nervousness. "Luo. Brother Luo An," Yi Yu shouted and looked at him. "Why don't you turn on the light?" However, Shenluo An didn't answer her. Instead, he approached her with a sullen face and said, "Hand over the recording." When Yi Yu heard that, she immediately said, "I didn't. Do you dare to say that you weren't eavesdropping on our conversation outside this afternoon?" Shenluo An sneered and approached her. "Yi Yu, do you think I'm a fool?" Chapter 1068. Yi Yu looked at Shenluo An's obviously unkind face and stepped back. However, Shenluo An's face showed obvious disbelief. He looked at Yi Yu coldly, approached her step by step, and said, "At that time, there was only me and Enchanting. Who else but you?" When Yi Yu heard this, she felt suffocated. She looked at Shenluo An and shook her head repeatedly. "Why don't you believe me?" "I didn't have to do this at all, did I? We have known each other for almost 20 years. Shenluo An, am I such a person in your eyes?" "No." However, in addition to him and Enchanting, there was only Yi Yu. No matter what, Enchanting couldn't joke about such a thing, so it could only be Yi Yu. How could it not be her? Shenluo An stared at Yi Yu and sneered, "I don't understand what you are thinking. Yi Yu, you have been wrong during the time you married me, haven't you?" There was sarcasm in Shenluo An's words, and a pair of serious eyes stared at Yi Yu in front of him. When Yi Yu saw Shenluo An's expression, she knew that this man was angry. Her back hit the cold wall behind her. Yi Yu looked at Shenluo An, who was walking in front of her step by step, and frowned tightly. "That's why you released this recording in an attempt to destroy me, am I right?" Shenluo An's face became more and more ugly, and his tone was also more and more determined. You are a smart person. You know very well what the consequences will be after this recording is released. At that time, Enchanting doesn't need you to do anything at all. Grandma will drive her out personally. That's amazing. It wasn't me. Yi Yuyu's face was pale, and she shouted, Shenluo, and that's enough. It wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. I didn't even turn on the recording software on my mobile phone, and how could I know what you would say? If I released this recording in Enchanting's current situation, would I still be a human? She is also my good friend and your sister. How could I do such a thing? If Yi Yuyu was now on the opposing side of Shenluo and Enchanting, she would have released the recording knowing that it was enough to destroy Shenluo and Enchanting. That would have been Enchanting's own doing. Who asked Yi Yuyu to be caught red-handed? That wasn't the case at all. Yi Yuyu had a pretty good relationship with Enchanting. Although she had accidentally heard such a secret that day, and she had even considered divorcing Enchanting, she had no intention of harming Enchanting. Now that Shenluo and had interrogated her in such a manner, Yi Yuyu's heart turned cold. She had loved this man for more than 10 years. If he had ever loved her, he would never have said such words to her. Being able to be so aggressive only proved that this man did not love her at all. When he heard Yi Yuyu's explanation, he sneered, Are you sure? Yi Yuyu, did you think I didn't know? When your parents divorced, you fought with your sister to follow your mother. Wasn't it because your mother's mistress was rich? Fortunately, your sister gave in. Otherwise, do you think you would still be the daughter of a rich family today? Poor sister. She didn't even know that she had been sold by you. Chapter 1069. Seeing Yi Yuyu's reaction, Shenluo and looked at her coldly and said, Do you want to know how I know it? I didn't. Yi Yuyu shouted, Who doesn't want to be with their mother? I wanted to be with my mother, and so did my sister, but I was only 5 years old at that time. How could I know so many twists and turns? Shenluo, and don't judge others by your own standards. I'm not as disgusting as you. Shenluo and sneered, You've been disgusting for so many years. Don't you think it's too hypocritical to say this now? You know how to make yourself more beautiful and likable since you were a child. Grandma was right. A woman like you is full of bad intentions since you were a child. You are destined to have no fate with our Shen family. No wonder my grandma hates you so much. Hearing this, Yi Yuyu's heart beat faster, and her heart was cold. She looked at Shenluo and in front of her and said, Do you want a divorce? Divorce? Shenluo and laughed, I'm crazy. If I divorce at this time, I'm really finished. While speaking, he stopped. Shenluo and was not as tall as Li Jinnan. He was about 1.8 meters tall, which was almost the same height as Yi Yuyu, who was wearing high heels. They looked at each other, and Shenluo and continued, Or do you want me to lose my reputation? To get back at me? Yi Yuyu was shocked. Looking at him, she didn't know what to say for a moment. Is this what Shenluo and thinks of me? How is it possible, Shenluo and? I'll get back at anyone but you. Don't say it, Shenluo and interrupted her and said, In this case, you'd better not intervene in the next thing. If I find out, I don't know what I'll do. After that, Shenluo and directly bypassed her, opened the door, and went straight out. The door was slammed shut. Yi Yuyu was frozen in place and couldn't recover for a long time. In her heart, the things that she had been obsessed with seemed to collapse at this moment. Heavily, she made a clear and desperate sound. He didn't believe her, even if only a little. Is this still the old Shenluo? The boy who used to look at her with a gentle smile, the boy who once ran in the mountains with a high fever on his back, and the boy who was almost eaten by wolves in order to save her from the mountains, where was he? There was nothing left. With the passage of time, the youth in the past had gradually disappeared without a trace. Was this man and Shenluo and still worthy of her persistent love? That was the first time Yi Yuyu had thought about it. He was at a loss and at a loss. Her cell phone rang anxiously. Yi Yu took it out of her bag and answered it. It was Mila. Mira was not only her good friend but also the best agent under NC Company. She picked up the phone and heard Myra's anxious voice. She shouted, Yu, the fact that you're married has been exposed. Now everyone knows that you're Shenluo An's wife. You'd better not go out for the next few days if there's nothing important. I'm afraid you'll be surrounded by the paparazzi. How could that be? Very few people know about this. I don't know. Anyway, be careful. I'll ask an assistant to help you. Got it. Thank you, Mila. Chapter 1070. Mira, Yi Yu interrupted Myra's words and said, if I use this to hype up, will it have any impact? Mira was stunned. She thought it would take a lot of effort to persuade her to use this to hype up. She didn't expect Yi Yu to ask first. After thinking for a while, Mira said, if you decide to use this to hype up, leave it to me. If it were any other artist, I would definitely start to hype up without hesitation. But you are my friend, and I don't want you to blame me in the future. Yu, if you really want to use this to hype up, I am confident that I can make you famous. As for whether you can make it to the A-list or not, it depends on how hard you work. Like many girls, Yi Yu had dreamed of being a big star since she was a child. Hearing Myra's words, it was impossible for Yi Yu to say that she wasn't tempted. Everyone wanted to be successful and reach the peak of life. People who had this kind of goal were always men and women, young and old. Yi Yu was silent for a moment and asked, what is the risk? Now that the crisis has been created, even if the outside world knows the fact that you have a secret marriage with the young master of the Shen family, it is not impossible to cover up this matter. But, if you want to make use of this matter, you have to make it big. So, will it bring harm to the Shen family? The harm to the Shen family is not caused by you, but by themselves. What you do is just to help them. But, if it succeeds, will your husband blame you? Blame? Yi Yu twitched her lips and said, then let's start, Mira. I'm ready. Mira felt a little strange and reminded her, if there is a crack in your marriage because of this, will it be okay? Even if I don't hype up, there will still be cracks in our marriage. Yi Yu smiled and looked into the mirror from afar. Suddenly, she felt a little sad. I'll leave it to you, Mira. Tell me what to do. All right, I'll contact you again if I need your cooperation. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Yi Yu sat on the sofa and browsed the news. The major websites had been replaced with news of a famous male star taking drugs, but there were also netizens who questioned and posted, is this to save the Shen siblings? Hands up, this PR is awesome. After scrolling a bit more, she realized that there were already a lot of news about her on the trending page. Breaking news, Shenluo An's wife's identity has been revealed. She's from the entertainment industry. She's the new and powerful actress, Yi Yu. Yi Yu clicked on it. Was the newly minted actress referring to her? Although it wasn't positive news, he still felt a little happy when he saw these words. He clicked on it and found that the comments were mixed. Pingxing Yi Dili, what do you mean by a new and powerful actress? Come on, any random unknown actress is a new and powerful actress. How can you call me Goddess Jean? My Goddess Jean Fan Jean Fan double-clicking 666 send you to the heavens. I have an impression of this woman. She's already married? He had a child's face. Damn. Bai and Shen Shuang is so shameless. I'll send you to heaven. I pity this star. It wasn't easy for her to find a rich second-generation heir. So this is how he behaves, dog head, super cute little piggy. My sister, you're amazing. You're being treated as a mistress by your own sister-in-law. This woman must be lacking in charm. After scrolling through the list, her phone vibrated. She had received a WeChat message. Chapter 1071. When Yi Yu saw the message, she immediately asked, "What should I send?" "Mira, it can highlight your position as the underdog and make you seem helpless, but it can't be weak. It can't make people think that you're pretending to be weak. Think about it carefully." When she saw the message, Yi Yu thought for a moment. Then, she typed 3 words to Mira, "I believe him." When Mira saw the words, she was slightly stunned. She immediately sent a thumbs up, "Sure." When Yi Yu saw Mira's reply, she sat on the sofa and took a selfie. Then, she sent out the message she had prepared. After she sent it, no one responded for a few minutes. After all, she was a minor celebrity. It was normal for no one to notice her. Yi Yu didn't care too much. She put her phone down and went to take a shower. After removing her makeup and applying a facial mask, she picked up her phone and realized that the message had exploded. "Sister Fan is the best, F***ck, he still believes in such conclusive evidence. True love. Yunxia Iji Ruhua, girl, although I don't know you, I sympathize with you. It's better to get a divorce with such a man. Heart, Bao Jia's little loli, I've seen the military adventure you acted in. Although you're not very popular yet, I can tell that you're a very hard-working newcomer. Keep it up. Heart, Shuangshen Kuangdia, you still believe in him? Are you retarded?" Because of this message, Yi Yu's number of fans increased from the original tens of thousands. There were a lot of messages popping up. It was the first time that Yi Yu had experienced such an obvious change in her fans. Do you know how celebrities become famous? It's 30% ability, 30% luck, and the rest is all hype. That was what Mira had said. Make use of the hype. When Eulili arrived at the Kingstown airport, it was December 29th, the day before New Year's Eve. Eulili had wrapped herself up tightly to avoid being photographed. Her original plan of not returning to the country had been completely ruined by Oh Ming. The first thing Eulili did when she returned to the country was to put her luggage at home before calling Oh Ming. Recently, Oh Ming had been extremely busy. The end of the year was approaching, and there were a lot of urgent matters to deal with in the company. There was also his mother's matter, the Shin family's matter, and the wedding. All kinds of things piled up. When he received Eulili's call, it was 2:00 in the afternoon, and he had just eaten. "Oh Ming?" Eulili asked. Oh Ming took a sip of the soup and replied, "Yes. I'm back home." Oh Ming choked on his soup and coughed violently. He hurriedly pulled out a piece of tissue and wiped it. "At this time?" "Yeah." Eulili heard his surprise and said, "I'm alone at home now. Yi Qianqian went home for the new year. No one followed you, right?" Oh Ming put down his chopsticks worriedly. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming back?" "I was afraid that you wouldn't let me come back. I missed you." Eulili's voice was cautious. "After I got off the plane, I wrapped myself up tightly. No one would recognize me. I'll be fine." Oh Ming's temper melted when he heard her say, "I missed you." His expression softened as he said in a low voice, "Wait for me. I'll go look for you now." Chapter 1072. Su Cheng was sitting next to Oh Ming eating. After watching Oh Ming hang up the phone, he coughed and asked, "Is that Miss Yu?" "Yeah," Oh Ming answered and stood up. After explaining the company's affairs, he stood up and said, "If anyone looks for me, tell them that I am busy and have been in the company." In this kind of situation, Oh Ming did not dare to provoke the reporters easily. If they were groundless, who knew what they would write? Su Cheng knew the danger and nodded, but he still reminded him, "Why don't you eat first?" "I'm not eating." "You eat." Oh Ming went into the office cloakroom and put on sunglasses. After changing into a low-key black windbreaker, he went downstairs. Driving a more common car, he stealthily drove to the neighborhood where Eulili lived. As soon as he went up, Oh Ming rang the doorbell, and the person inside immediately opened the door. Oh Ming was dressed very differently from his usual style, but Eulili recognized him at a glance. With a happy smile on her face, she rushed toward him. Her whole body climbed on top of him, and her legs clung to his thighs. Oh Ming held her firmly, and the smile on his face gradually widened. After carrying her in, he closed the door and couldn't wait to kiss her face. Yu Lily took off his sunglasses, hugged his neck with both hands, and kissed him back. Oh Ming sat on the sofa with her in his arms, pinched her face, and frowned. Why have you lost weight again? Haven't you eaten these days? I'm not used to French food. Yu Lily smiled and sat on him, looking at his tired face. On his originally weak-colored skin, there were 2 more dark circles under his eyes. It was obvious that even his chin had turned green. His hair had grown long, and his cheeks were slightly sunken. Yu Lily felt a little distressed. She touched his face and asked, "Have you been very tired recently?" The heartache in her eyes made Oh Ming smile. He held her face and kissed her on the lips. "I'm not tired," he said. "Liar. Look at your face." Yu Lily pinched his face and said, "You look like a person in his 30s. You look old again." Oh Ming laughed. "I'm already in my 30s. No, you look about the same age as Shinjilia. That's because he grew too fast." Oh Ming looked at her seriously. "That's why he looks old. I'm different. No matter what, I'm still young. Otherwise, how could I have charmed you for so many years?" Yuli snorted in disgust and looked away. "What kind of expression is that?" Oh Ming hugged her and chuckled helplessly. "Am I wrong? You've grown thicker. It's only been a few days since we last met, and your facial defense has become so strong?" Yu Lily pushed him away. "I'm hungry. Have you eaten?" "I didn't eat." "That's great. Let's eat instant noodles together. There's only instant noodles here." "Okay." Oh Ming chuckled and looked at her. "Everything you cook is delicious." Yu Lily raised her eyebrows slightly with a proud look on her face and immediately went into the kitchen. About 10 minutes later, Yu Lily walked out with a bowl of noodles and shouted, "Time to eat." However, what responded to her was a steady and even breathing. Asleep? Chapter 1073. A part of Yu Lily's heart was suddenly squeezed hard, and it was sore and painful. Putting the noodles down, Yu Lily went to the room and took out a blanket. She gently covered him. Oh Ming had always been a light sleeper. Yu Lily's movements were very, very light, for fear of waking him up. After gently covering him with the blanket, Yu Lily quietly took the instant noodles back to the kitchen. Then she put on her coat, hat, and scarf, and walked out the door. Oh Ming hadn't had a good rest since he went to Japan. As soon as he returned to China, he was busy again. Even he didn't expect that he would accidentally fall asleep. When he woke up, he smelled the aroma of food. Oh Ming lifted the blanket on his body and stretched. He could clearly hear a slight sound coming from the kitchen. The sound was very quiet, and he could tell that it was light movements. Oh Ming walked into the kitchen quietly. Yu Lily was cooking. She was wearing an apron and holding a spatula in her hand. From behind, she had short hair and wore a beige scarf. Her figure was slender and graceful. Every part of her was so perfect that it made Oh Ming's heart beat faster. Oh Ming gently stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. Yu Lily was caught off guard and was shocked. When she turned around, she saw Oh Ming's smiling peach blossom eyes. His dark brown eyes were a little bit evil. He leaned over slightly, and his eyes were full of tenderness. He whispered, "Are you scared?" Yu Lily relaxed and glared at him. "Why don't you make a sound when you walk?" Oh Ming hugged her tighter and moved slightly closer. He stared at her face and whispered, "What delicious food are you making? See for yourself." "I can't see it." Oh Ming's eyes never moved away. He looked at her and said, "When you are here, I only have eyes for you." Yu Lily couldn't help but smile. She turned off the fire and said, "Go wash your hands. We can eat soon." Oh Ming didn't listen. He leaned forward and easily captured her lips and gently sucked. Yu Lily slightly narrowed her eyes in response, but she withdrew after a kiss and said, "Let's eat first." Oh Ming reluctantly released her and kissed the corner of her lips again. Okay. He washed his hands and sat down at the dining table. He took the rice that Yu Lily handed him and quickly started eating. Yu Lily had a small stomach, so she was half full after a few bites. She rested her chin on her hands and looked at Oh Ming. Oh Ming couldn't help but chuckle as he ate. He looked up at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Are you so fascinated by my handsomeness that you can't help yourself?" "Yeah." Yu Lily laughed out loud, but the smile on her face quickly disappeared. She asked, "It's almost the new year. Aren't you done with your work?" "They should be on vacation at this time. There's still a project in the company, and I'm almost done with it." Oh Ming looked up and saw the distress on her face. He felt warm in his heart and said, "Thanks to your help, Enchanting was dealt with directly. Otherwise, I would have been busy for a while." Yu Lily blinked in surprise. "Really?" "Yeah. These few days, because of Shen Luo and Enchanting's matter, the focus of the media has been shifted a lot. It's more convenient to do a lot of things. It's all thanks to you. It was just that the timing of the news wasn't right." Although the travel and reputation issue had been resolved, there was a new problem with Xiao Ziqing. However, his pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes were still as bright as a bright lamp. They were bright and full of expression, like honey, which made people unable to extricate themselves from them. When Yu Lily saw him, all the dissatisfaction that had been accumulated in her heart disappeared. Chapter 1075. Yu Lily was caught off guard. She struggled for a while, but soon she obeyed. Oh Ming held her in his arms and moved his feet gently. Soon, he pushed her down on the bed that she had just made. The hot kiss gently moved from her lips, and Oh Ming seemed a little impatient. With his arms around her waist, Oh Ming looked at her with a pair of burning eyes and whispered, "How long have we not seen each other?" 4 days. Yu Lily gently put her hands on his waist and felt his eagerness and enthusiasm. She looked up at him with a smile. "It's 5 days." Oh Ming gently kissed her lips. "It's 7 hours faster in China than in Paris, so it's 5 days. Can it be calculated like this?" Yu Lily felt that this man was shameless. Looking at the eyes in front of her, she blinked. Oh Ming moved a little closer, and his hot breath intertwined with hers. He whispered, "Then let's change the calculation. There are 24 hours in a day, 8 hours of work and 8 hours of sleep. We can be together for 8 hours a day. So, how many hours have I lost?" "That works. Why not?" Oh Ming smiled. The distance between their lips was less than a millimeter, and they were almost touching. Yu Lily's heart was beating fast. This kind of distance was more nerve-wracking than a direct kiss. "Once an hour. Tell me, how many times do you want to compensate me?" Yu Lily's face was burning. She pushed him and growled, "Big pervert. If you love someone, you will do sexual things with her all the time. You told me this. Have you forgotten?" "I didn't." "Don't be shameless. You said it." Oh Ming held her hands and then lowered his head to kiss her lips. His movements were gentle, slow, and tender. His big palms moved gently down her body, easily penetrated her clothes around her waist, and touched her warm and smooth skin. Yu Lily narrowed her eyes and gently hugged him. She responded intentionally or unintentionally. The winter in Kingstown was never particularly cold. Yu Lily was wearing an unlined shirt and a loose sweater, which was easily taken off by Oh Ming. Her snow-white upper body touched the cold air and shrank. Oh Ming pressed his lips against hers, and his kisses fell on her body, gentle and devout. Yu Lily couldn't help but lift his thigh. She climbed onto his leg and hugged his waist. She called out, "Oh Ming." "Mm." Oh Ming directly sealed her lips. His big hands were unscrupulous, and his tongue pried open her lips and teeth, intertwining with each other. Just then, the phone in Oh Ming's pocket began to vibrate. Oh Ming paused and straightened up. His breathing was a little heavy. He picked up the phone and saw that it was his mother calling. He calmed down and waved the phone screen in front of Yu Lily. "It's my mom. I'll take the call." "Yeah," Yu Lily answered. She pulled the sweater that she had thrown aside and covered herself with it. "Mom." "Lil, oh, it's almost Lunar New Year. Come home quickly and let's have a meal together." "Mom, I'm still working. You and Dad can eat first." "You're still working? Where are you working?" "I'm at the company. Don't wait for me." Chapter 1076. When Oh Ming heard that, his heart skipped a beat. Subconsciously, Oh Ming glanced at Yu Lily. Meeting her gaze, Oh Ming remained calm and said, "I just came out. I'll go back later. I still have things to do." "Really? Really?" Qiao Ziqing was skeptical and snorted. "You'd better not let me find out that you're still with that woman. Otherwise, don't come back for the new year. Just die with that woman outside." Su Cheng's heart twitched when he heard that. What she said was too much. You shouldn't casually curse people at any time, especially during the new year. In ancient times, it was considered a taboo for an elder to curse the younger generation. Su Cheng coughed and said, "Madam, isn't it too much to say that? After all, Master O is your son." Qiao Ziqing listened to the phone and looked at Su Cheng. She had already guessed something. With a sullen face, she said, "Do you know that he's with that woman?" "I don't know." Su Cheng lowered his head. "But I think it's not appropriate for you to curse your own son like that. Master O has been very busy recently. I hope you can forgive him." Qiao Ziqing knew that her son was busy. Otherwise, she wouldn't have brought him the desserts she had made herself. But as soon as he arrived at the company, he wasn't there. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. Especially when she thought that her son might be with that coquettish B*TCH, she felt even more uncomfortable. Qiao Ziqing held the phone in her hand and said to Oh Ming on the other end of the line, "No matter what, go home early tonight. Special Assistant Su has a family. How can you let him work overtime with you? No matter how important your work is, put it aside and let Special Assistant Su go home for the new year." Oh Ming heard what Qiao Ziqing said and said, "Okay. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up." Qiao Ziqing snorted and hung up the phone first, not giving Oh Ming a chance to do so. After hanging up the phone, Qiao Ziqing looked at the young assistant beside her and said, "I know you have a good relationship with my son, but I am Oh Ming's mother. I have the right to know what he has done. Special Assistant Su, next time you find out that he has gone to look for that woman, or if you have any news about that woman, I hope you can tell me. I will not mistreat you." Hearing this, Su Qing smiled slightly, nodded and said, "Yes, madam, I will definitely tell you everything I know." Qiao Ziqing was satisfied. She looked at the dessert in her hand and said, "Drink this dessert. It's good for your body." As he spoke, he placed the dessert cup on the table and turned to leave. Su Cheng looked at Qiao Ziqing's departing figure with a complicated look in his eyes. He glanced at the dessert she had just put down and sent a message to Oh Ming. "Madam seems to have noticed something and asked me to report to her any news about Miss Yu." Oh Ming saw the message and replied, "What do you say?" "Special Assistant Su," I agreed, "but I didn't say anything, and I won't say anything in the future." Seeing Su Cheng's reply, Oh Ming put down the phone again. He turned his head and saw Yu Lily, who was obviously a little disappointed. Yu Lily was lying in bed. When she saw him looking at her, she smiled a little resentfully, which made him feel sorry for her. Chapter 1077. It was a simple question, but it made Oh Ming's heart suddenly sour. Yu Lily's face was full of resentment and confusion, as well as a little embarrassment. He shifted his body slightly so that he was no longer pressing down on her. After taking off his jacket, he lay down beside her and kissed her hair gently. He whispered, "No. Maybe my mother has some misunderstandings about you. She'll understand when I explain it to her." "Really?" Yu Lily was a little depressed. She looked up at Oh Ming's face and smiled. "You should go back. Your mother should be waiting for you at home. I want to be with you." Oh Ming leaned over and pressed her under his body. "I'll go back tomorrow." As he spoke, he lowered his head, and his lips were close to her face. Yu Lily slightly turned her head to avoid his kiss. Deep in her eyes, there was a clear sense of loss. She whispered, "You'd better go back." "I don't want to do it now." Oh Ming's eyes were slightly deep. He held her in his arms and said, "Then don't do it. Let's chat." Yu Lily heard that, turned over and faced him. Then she lowered her head and went into his arms. She held his waist with one hand and called, "Oh Ming." "Yeah." Oh Ming held her in his arms and kissed her head gently. "I'm here." "Oh Ming, I am very curious about one thing, but I have never dared to ask you. Now I want to ask. Can you answer me?" Yu Lily looked up at him. Her dark eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of wet mist. Oh Ming looked at her and clearly noticed her uneasiness. He reached out and gently brushed the hair on her forehead. "What's the matter?" Winter nights always came faster. It was already 5:00 in the afternoon, and the light in the room was already dark. In the dim light, Oh Ming's eyes looked particularly bright. A pair of sparkling eyes looked at him. They were filled with pity, love, guilt, and an inexplicable pity. Oh Ming. Yu Lily looked at Oh Ming. Her heart beat faster and faster. It was so fast that it was trembling. It was so fast that her heart was numb. Unconsciously, her grip on his clothes tightened as she asked, "Will you really marry me?" Oh Ming hadn't expected her to ask such a question. He was startled, but he quickly looked at her firmly and said, "Yes." "Really?" "Of course." Oh Ming looked at her. His big hand ran through her short hair. His peach blossom eyes were shining. "I won't marry another woman. I promise you, my wife is only you. Only you." Yu Lily felt a lump in her throat and buried herself in his arms. Oh Ming looked down at her and said in a hoarse voice, "I will take care of my mother." Since Qiao Ziqing was in poor health, it was impossible for him to go against her. He could only convince her step by step. Now, the biggest obstacle between them was Yu Lily's identity. He hugged her and asked in a low voice, Have you seen your parents?" Chapter 1078. Her tone was light, as if it was not a big deal. When she spoke, there was a helpless smile on her face. "Stop it." Oh Ming reached out and gently stroked her hair. "Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. Do you have any plans?" "I'll draw at home." Yu Lily smiled. "I have nowhere to go anyway. Except for the 3 years I was with you, I had to work on New Year's Eve every year. Now that I finally don't have to work, of course, I have to wake up naturally and then work. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. Don't work. I'll take you out to play." "When?" "Now." Oh Ming pulled her up. "I'll take you to second brother's house." "Is there anything fun in their house?" "Yes, they have 3 children." Yu Lily was speechless. "Play with children?" Dummy challenge, begin. As soon as the sweet voice fell, Li Jianxian and Li Mosen stopped what they were doing. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve, and Nanny Rong had already started her annual leave. Su Qianxi was reading in the study. Hearing the sound, she called, "Desu, see who's here." However, there was no response. Ding dong. Ding dong. The doorbell continued to ring. Su Qianxi closed her book and walked out. As soon as she went out, she saw 3 little guys, each in a very strange posture, maintaining a motionless posture. Li Jianyue was holding a big doll, sitting on the sofa, in the most normal posture. As for the other two, Li Jianxian maintained a running posture, and Li Mosen's mouth was open as if he wanted to say something. His eyes were wide open, not even blinking. Seeing them like this, Su Qianxi knew they were playing some boring game again. Ignoring them, she went straight to the door and opened it. She clicked on the intercom screen and saw Yu Lily and O Ming. Su Qianxi was quite surprised, but quickly opened the door and invited them in. Seeing Su Qianxi, Yu Lily felt a little warm. As soon as she entered, she gave Su Qianxi a big hug. Su Qianxi was dazed and looked at O Ming. With a faint smile on his lips, O Ming asked, "Is second brother here?" "He hasn't come back yet." "Come in." Su Qianxi opened the door and gently patted Yu Lily on the back. "What's wrong?" "I'm fine." Yu Lily smiled brightly. "Where's your child?" "Daesu, Ersu, Mosen, stop playing. We have guests." Hearing Su Qianxi's words, Li Jianxian immediately breathed a sigh of relief, and Li Mosen directly relaxed and sat on the ground. "I'm so tired." Li Mosen gasped, but he quickly stood up and said, "Hello, uncle." "Hello, auntie." Li Mosen was of mixed blood, with blue eyes and fair skin. He looked out of place with the other two children. However, Li Mosen was also extremely good-looking. He looked like a doll. Yu Lily was excited. She stepped forward, touched Li Mosen's little head and said, "Hello." Li Jianxian called out, "Uncle O, you're here. What would you like to drink?" Li Jianyue also got up from the sofa and greeted, "Hello, Auntie Lily." "Hello, Uncle O Ming." Her voice was as sweet as cotton candy, very pleasant to listen to. Chapter 1079. "Sit down, I'll cut fruit for you," Su Qianxi said. Then she looked at Li Jianxian and said, "Daesu, go and get juice for uncle and auntie." "Okay." Li Jianxian responded, but Li Jianyue immediately shouted, "Mom, I'll go." Su Qianxi saw that she was so active, smiled and said, "Okay, then you go." Li Jianyue happily put down the doll in her hand, and then walked to the kitchen with her short legs. The little nightdress on her body flew as she walked. She moved a small stool and climbed to the kitchen where the cups were placed. She took 2 cups and then went to get a tray. After putting down the cups, he carried the small stool to the door of the fridge, tiptoed to open the fridge door, and used all his strength to pull out a bottle of juice. After that, his pair of short hands carried the juice to the side of the table where the cups were placed. After stuffing the juice on the table, she returned the way she came and took the small stool back. After pouring 2 glasses of juice, Li Jianyue took the tray and walked to the sofa in the living room. Along the way, a pair of big black grape-like eyes stared at the 2 glasses of juice on the tray, for fear of spilling it. Finally, after walking for a long time, seeing that the juice was safe and sound, she breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Uncle and Auntie, drink the juice." Yu Lily's heart was about to melt. She picked up the 2 glasses of juice, put one in front of O Ming, and held the other in her hand. "Thank you, Ersu." "Auntie, you're welcome." Li Jianyue smiled happily, holding the tray and dancing. She cheered and walked toward the kitchen, shouting, "Mom, Mom, I'm done." Auntie also thanked Ersu. As her short legs moved, the pink princess nightgown on her body also moved along with them. Her bell-like laughter made people's hearts feel comfortable. Yu Lily looked at Li Jianyue running, and the love and envy in her eyes became stronger. She took a sip of juice, and her eyes were deep. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen came out with a Rubik's Cube, ran to O Ming and shouted, "Uncle O, you see, I can turn it now, and Mosen can do it too." "That's amazing," O Ming praised, took the Rubik's Cube, and said, "Then Uncle will test you." And hearing this, Li Jianxian was a little excited. He nodded and said, "I also asked my father to buy me a very complicated toy. Mosen knows how to play, but I don't. I'll go get it. With that, he ran inside. Oh Ming chuckled. Looking at the little guy who was excited to show off, he felt that the little guy was very similar to Li Xiqing when he was young. However, as Li Xiqing grew up, he became more introverted and composed. Li Mosen sat obediently at the side, took the Rubik's Cube from Oh Ming's hand, and quickly turned it in his hand. Yu Lily watched as Li Mosen turned the Rubik's Cube. She couldn't help but exclaim, I don't even know how to play with this thing. Kids nowadays are too smart. Not all children are so quick-witted. Oh Ming looked up with a smile on his lips. Second brother's children are all very smart. As he spoke, he looked up at Yu Lily and said, in the future, our children will be as smart as them. In the future, our children. Yu Lily was still very confused about the future. Chapter 1080. Everything was still unknown. However, she wanted to be with him. She wanted to be with him, to live together, and to have children together. Seeing the softness deep in Oh Ming's eyes, Yu Lily smiled and nodded. So be it. Cherish the present. Take one step at a time. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a pink figure. Turning her head, she saw Li Jianyue's chubby little hands holding a fruit platter. She was being very careful, as if she was afraid of dropping it. Feeling Yu Lily's gaze on her, she smiled brightly and called out, Auntie, have some fruit. Yu Lily felt her heart soften. She went forward to take the fruit plate and said, Come here, Auntie will feed you. Thank you, Auntie, but I want to eat by myself. Dad said that if I can eat by myself in the future and don't drop it on my clothes, he will promise me one thing. Li Jianyue was a little proud as she spoke. She lowered her head and picked up an apple with a fruit fork. She held it out and said, Auntie, have some fruit. Thank you, Ursu. Yu Lily took it with a smile in her eyes. Li Jianyue was indescribably happy to be thanked by Oh Ming. She smiled and reached out her short hand to grab a fruit fork. She inserted a dragon fruit into it and ran towards Oh Ming, shouting, Uncle, eat some fruit. Oh Ming took it, gently rubbed her little head, and said, Thank you. Li Jianyue smiled happily and shouted, You're welcome. Then she inserted 2 more and handed them to Li Mosen and Li Jianxian. Just after the 2 little guys took it, the sound of the door opening came from outside. When Li Xiqing came in and saw Oh Ming and Yu Lily, he was surprised. Dad! Li Jianyue shouted happily. She ran toward Li Xiqing with her short legs and shouted, Dad, hug. It was colder outside than inside. Li Xiqing's body was cold. Seeing that the little girl was only wearing a thin nightdress, he moved aside and said, Dad is cold. I will hug you later. Then he closed the door and took his daughter's hand. Have you said hello to Uncle and Auntie? Yes. I poured juice for Uncle and Auntie and invited them to eat fruit. I also ate it. It didn't fall on me. Look. As she spoke, she shook off Li Xiqing's hand, spun around, and yelled, Isn't it great? Li Xiqing had been busy all day. Seeing his daughter like this, he chuckled and said, Great, my daughter is the best. Where's Mommy? Mom is boiling sweet water for Uncle and Auntie. Li Jianyue hugged Li Xiqing's leg and said, Dad, you promise me that as long as I don't drop food on my body, you will promise me one thing. Li Xiqing's smile widened, and a smile appeared in his cold eyes. Because of this smile, his originally cold and distinct facial features softened a lot. Bending down, he picked up his daughter and walked inside. He asked, What do you want me to promise you? Su Qianxi asked. I want to sleep with Daddy and Mommy. Other children sleep with Daddy and Mommy. I want to sleep too. Who said that? Do you see the 2 brothers sleeping with Mom and Dad? Little Red Flower next door said that she always sleeps with her parents. Li Jianyue rolled her round eyes and said, Daddy is an adult. You can't go back on your words. Dash. Chapter 1081. Looking at the serious look on the little girl's face, Li Xiqing suddenly felt a headache. Li Jianyue saw that her father did not speak, so she tilted her head and said, "Dad, are you really going to go back on your word?" Li Xiqing raised his eyebrows, held the little girl, and said, "How could I? But Dad said that as long as I can do it, I will definitely agree, right?" Li Jianyue heard this and nodded. "But this thing, Dad can't do it." When Li Xiqing said this, his expression did not change, and he said seriously, "This is something that can't be done, so Dad is not going back on his word." Li Jianyue heard this, and her little eyebrows frowned, and she asked unhappily, "Why?" Oh Ming and Yu Lily sat on the sofa and saw Li Xiqing's serious look of coaxing a child, and they couldn't help but laugh. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen, the two little guys, looked over, and they all had doubts, waiting for Li Xiqing's next words. They saw that Li Xiqing put Li Jianyue aside and said seriously, "Because, if there is one more person in the bed, your mother will not be able to sleep." Hearing this, Li Jianyue's face was full of doubt. However, when she saw the serious look on her father's face, she was immediately intimidated and asked, "Really? Really?" Li Xiqing nodded, and there was no hint of lying on his face. Oh Ming couldn't help but laugh, and he turned his head and looked at Yu Lily. Yu Lily's pair of eyes looked at the little girl who was scared, and her smile became wider, as if it was full of the glory of maternal love. So beautiful. Yu Lily's smile was more charming than that of the father and daughter. "Dad, I don't believe it." Li Jianyue's voice was indescribably serious, and she said, "In the past, when Dad didn't come home, Ursu often slept with Mom, but Mom could fall asleep. One more is fine, but not two." "That will make Mom uncomfortable," Li Xiqing said with a straight face. "Humph, then Dad can sleep with brother, and I can sleep with Mom." "That won't do either. If Daddy doesn't sleep with Mommy, he won't be able to sleep." Li Jianyue was furious. She placed her hands on her hips and shouted, "Daddy, you are too childish. You are already so old, yet you still want to sleep with Mommy. You are already in your 30s. Can't you be more mature?" When he said that, both Oh Ming and Yu Lily burst out laughing. When Su Qianxi walked out with the sweet soup, she happened to hear what the little girl said. She smiled and shouted, "Ursu, how can you talk to Daddy like that?" Li Jianyue snorted and crossed her arms over her chest. She turned around and shouted, "Mommy, Ursu wants to sleep with Mommy tonight. Ursu has to be obedient." Li Xiqing did not wait for Su Qianxi to speak. He picked up his daughter and said, "For the sake of Mom and Dad's health, you can't sleep with Mom and Dad. Change the condition." "No, I want to sleep with Mommy." "Daddy, you go sleep with Big Brother." Li Jianyue was very stubborn. She had no intention of being persuaded at all. She shouted, "I want to nurture Daddy's independent thinking and ability, just like how Daddy nurtures my brothers. You have to grow up by yourself. Do you understand, Daddy?" Chapter 1082. When Li Xiqing heard that, he slowly turned his head and looked at Oh Ming. However, his eyes were cold. When he glanced at him, the smile on Oh Ming's face immediately disappeared. He coughed and said, "This is a good way of education. It's very amiable." Li Xiqing retracted his gaze and said in a low voice, "Well said." Then he looked at his daughter and said, "Little one, Dad has grown up. He is different from you. You are different. Dad is an adult, but you are still like a child. You are not mature at all." Li Jianyue pouted and said, "You can't be like this." Li Xiqing laughed and pinched her little nose. He said, "Go eat dessert with the brothers. Dad will talk to the uncles." "Can't I eat here?" Li Jianyue looked at Li Xiqing with a pair of round eyes. "Yes, you can eat here." Yu Lily quickly waved her hand and said, "Qianqian, let me help you." "Okay." Su Qianxi nodded. After putting down the sweet soup, she took the bowl and began to serve the children. Li Xiqing looked at Oh Ming and asked, "Looking for me?" "No, I just wanted to bring you Lily to see the children. Oh Ming looked at the little girl sitting next to Li Xicheng. Your daughter is really not like you at all. She looked like Su Qianxi, and her character was very different from Li Xicheng's. She was also very talkative. It was good to raise a daughter. Oh Ming began to piece together Yu Lily's face and his own in his mind. If her character was like Yu Lily, then it was over. He couldn't take care of two grandmothers. It was better to raise a son. Second brother's son was also raised well. He was not naughty and smart. As he thought about it, he looked at Yu Lily. With a smile on her face, Yu Lily happened to look over at Oh Ming. Oh Ming chuckled and said, "Tomorrow is the new year. Do you have any plans?" "What other plans can I have? I will take the children back to the old house and celebrate the new year with the family." Li Xicheng took a small bowl from Su Qianxi. After testing the temperature, he handed it to his daughter and said, "Be careful. It's hot. Eat slowly." "Okay." Li Jianhua held the small bowl and looked at the soup inside. She was about to drool. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen also wanted to eat and looked at Li Jianhua's small bowl. However, this was the way things were in this family. If there was good food and fun things to do, mom and little sister would have them first. The two of them would come second, and dad would be last. Seeing that Li Jianhua started to dig and eat, two pairs of eyes looked at her and then at Su Qianxi. "Have you two boys finished your homework?" Li Xicheng looked at them and asked casually. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen answered in unison, "Done." With that, they ran towards the room together. The two little guys ran up the stairs together. Su Qianxi was shocked and shouted, "Be careful, don't fall." "I won't." Li Jianxian replied and quickly went up with Li Mosen. Oh Ming looked at the two little guys and gave Li Xicheng a thumbs up. Yu Lily said, "It's too obvious that you value women over men. It's nice to be your daughter." Chapter 1083. Hearing that, Li Xicheng didn't seem to find it inappropriate at all. He said, "Daughters are meant to be spoiled. Only when they are spoiled can they harm other people's sons. It's not that easy to marry our daughter." As he spoke, he didn't forget to squint at Oh Ming and said matter-of-factly, "As for boys, of course, they must be able to shoulder the responsibility. Otherwise, how can they protect their sister in the future? Right?" "That's right." Oh Ming deeply agreed. Li Xicheng's words really touched the bottom of his heart. There should be a limit. Look at your daughter. Mom said she is a bit spoiled. Su Qianxi gently pushed Li Xicheng, a bit dissatisfied. Li Xicheng chuckled. "All right. You should teach her what she needs to be taught." Hearing that, Su Qianxi didn't want to talk to him anymore. She turned to look at Yu Lily and asked, "What are you going to do tomorrow?" Yu Lily's current identity was a bit awkward. If Oh Ming went home, wouldn't Yu Lily be destined to be alone? Thinking of this, Su Qianxi suddenly realized the real reason why Oh Ming brought Yu Lily here today. Understanding everything, Su Qianxi walked in the direction of Yu Lily and sat down next to her. She said, "I happen to have 2 tickets for the art exhibition. Why don't we go together?" Li Xicheng heard that and turned to look at Su Qianxi, slightly raising his eyebrows. Yesterday, he said that he wanted the two of them to go together, to get rid of the children and go to a world of just the two of them. How did it become a world of just the two of them now? Su Qianxi didn't seem to notice Li Xicheng's gaze. She looked at Yu Lily expectantly and asked, "How is it?" Yu Lily clearly noticed Li Xicheng's strange look. Thinking about it, she said, "Don't you need to stay at home with your family? Tomorrow is New Year's Eve." "It doesn't matter. After tomorrow, I will be free at night. We will go at night. The art exhibition starts at 7 p.m. When we go, we can just watch the fun." Yu Lily wanted to go, but she had nothing to do anyway. Every year on New Year's Eve, Oh Ming would stay at home. He would only come over to be with her in the afternoon on the first day of the year. This year would be no exception. She subconsciously glanced at Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing also noticed her gaze and said, "Go ahead. I'll take the kids to see the fireworks tomorrow. After you're done with the art exhibition, come back and play with us." "Does that mean I'm inviting you, Lily, to celebrate the new year with me?" Yu Lily was pleasantly surprised, and her heart warmed. She nodded her head and said happily, "Okay. That's settled then. See you tomorrow night." She nodded and looked at O Ming. O Ming didn't say anything. He just looked at Yu Lily with a smile on his face. The two little guys, Li Jianxian and Li Mosen, finally came down from upstairs, each holding a box in their hands. After they went downstairs, they walked in the direction of Yu Lily and O Ming. "Uncle, Auntie, this is for you," Li Jianxian and Li Mosen said at the same time and stuffed the boxes into their arms. Yu Lily and O Ming were a little surprised and looked at the two little guys. Chapter 1084. It's all in here. After Li Jianxian stuffed the box into O Ming's arms, his little face was full of seriousness, and he said, "Uncle, this is a gift from the three of us and our blessings. Please open it and have a look." "The three of you made it?" O Ming felt a little strange. "You went up for so long just to do this?" "No, we are sharing the blessings, giving half of them to you, and the other half to you," Li Mosen said with a serious face. "This is also the homework that Dad gave us." O Ming chuckled, took it, and said, "What kind of homework is this?" "I thought it was some kind of exercise, but I didn't expect it to be so different." "Did you arrange it for them?" "It was their mother's idea. I arranged it." Li Xiqing was very satisfied with his reaction, and he looked a little proud. The main thing is to test the children's perseverance and patience. Congratulations on being the first guest of our family. You are lucky. When O Ming heard that, he felt that Li Xiqing was full of the sour smell of happiness. At the same time, he did not forget to look in the direction of Yu Lily. Yu Lily had already taken the lead and opened the lid. When she saw the box full of colorful flowers, her eyes were filled with amazement. She exclaimed, "Did you guys make this?" Li Mosen was young, but he was very sensitive. Seeing Yu Lily's obviously amazing appearance, he felt excited from the bottom of his heart. Li Mosen nodded and said, "I made Xin Xin, Ursu made the stars, and Daisu made the paper cranes inside. This is the homework that Dad gave us a few days ago. Each of us has to make 199 folded papers." As he spoke, he looked at Yu Lily's eyes, and his speech became slower and slower. His face became redder and redder, and he lowered his head slightly, looking quite helpless. Yu Lily saw that Li Mosen was nervous, smiled, hugged his little head, kissed him gently on the forehead, and said, "That's great. Auntie likes it very much. If my son can be as good as you in the future, that would be great." When Li Mosen heard that, he almost jumped with joy. He looked up at Yu Lily, nodded, and said with a red face, "Thank you, Auntie. In the future, your children will definitely be better than us." The smile on Yu Lily's face widened, and she couldn't believe that such modest words came from the mouth of a 5-year-old child. Such a child could be seen from his family's education. No wonder he was the child of Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi. He taught him better than anyone else. The little boy, Li Jianxian, who was standing not far from O Ming, heard Li Mosen's words and said, "We made 199 each. We gave Uncle and Auntie 99 each. There's still one more here." Li Jianxian took out a few pieces of paper from his pocket, pink hearts, white cranes, and yellow stars. Li Jianhua took a mouthful of sweet soup and asked in confusion, "Li Jianhua, Li, you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."